Oh, what's up, guys? I want to talk about a book that I just finished, the book that I'm probably going to be starting here in just a little while after dinner, and some other books that I have here that I plan on reading very soon and covering here on the channel. But I also want to talk about some potential slight tweaks in what I'm doing here on the channel. And I'd like to get some feedback from you guys concerned with what you all would like to see here, what you would prefer to see, what you don't want to see, and so on and so forth. So please let me know down in the comments, guys, what you think about the things that I say in this video. First thing I want to mention real quick is that I finished a novel. I finally finished my 53rd Stephen King book, and that is The Great Pet Cemetery, a book all about fear and grief and death. This was a good book. It was my 53rd King read. I'm working toward reading them all, becoming an expert on the Stephen King multiverse at large. And this was really good. I actually have a nice hardback copy of it up on my shelf. I read the paperback. But yeah, this was a great book. Looking forward to covering this. And I'm thinking about how I want to do that particular video. You know, sometimes rather than sit down and do a formal review like I've done hundreds of times, I like to have a conversation with someone about the book. Now, I recently did a video that has done very well. It's getting thousands of views. I did a video called The Dark Tower Explained, I think was the name of it. In fact, I know that's the name of it. Bev Vincent came on, who's a writer. He's an expert on Stephen King. We had a conversation about the Dark Tower series, and it came out really well. And I feel that that video probably did better than had I sat down on my own and did my own explanation. Now, that might not be right, but I enjoyed that. And I'm thinking about doing some more interviews here on the channel in the future. So let me know if you all enjoy seeing book reviews in a format that is two people having a conversation about a novel rather than me sitting here on my own. I'm just curious what you all would like to see. And another thing that I've considered doing for a while, and the reason I haven't done it is because I'm not sure how well it will go over with the audience that I have now. There are a lot of people that talk about books on YouTube. In fact, there are probably tens of thousands of channels of people talking about books on YouTube. However, I don't think there's a single person on YouTube that does a regularly scheduled broadcasted live show that's literary based on the same days and times, like, I don't know, 7 days a week we broadcast at this particular time, and we talk about a new subject in fiction every night at the same time. I'm not sure how well that would go over. Like, I see potential for it because no one else does it. But I'm also not sure what you all would think about that. Do you think that you would actually be interested in like almost like a television program type show? Let me know in the comments what you all think about everything that I just said, because I'm thinking about the direction I want to go in with this channel. For example, I finished Pet Sematary by Stephen King, and I'm pondering, should I sit down and review this book like I always would? Or should I maybe have Bev Vincent back on the show to have a conversation about the book? Would that be a better review style than what I'm already doing? So I'm curious, guys. Let me know. I'm also thinking about starting a book tonight. I'm really stuck in between the next two novels that I'm going to read. I really want to go on with the next installment for me in the Vampire Chronicles. I actually started it last night. I read the poem on the first page, and I read like half of the first chapter and I put it down. I said, I don't know if I'm into this right now. And I don't want to start it and get a third of the way through it and put it down and then I never go back to it. So I just wasn't sure if I was into it, but I'm talking about The Tale of the Body Thief by Anne Rice. It starts out with Lestat saying, it's the vampire Lestat. Something happened to me and I want to tell you about it. It sounds like I'm going to like it. The only reason I'm maybe a little bit apprehensive about it is because it gets bad ratings. That's like one of the least liked installments in the Vampire Chronicles. However, I think I'm going to like it anyway. I'm really into this bizarre tale of these vampires. And, I think one reason that the Vampire Chronicles has been such a successful series, it reminds me of Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, because in Crime and Punishment, something that I recognize is that the characters are unusual in the way that they're very believable. And what I mean by that is the characters in Crime and Punishment and the Vampire Chronicles just do the weirdest, strangest, bizarre, messed up shit they do. They're very just messed up. They're just almost ludicrous in some of the things that they do. And it reminds me of how people really act in the world, is what Crime and Punishment reminded me of, and the Vampire Chronicles. So I just really want to get on with that. I want to get to the point in it where the Mayfair witches come in. And the other book that I'm kind of wrestling with, which one do I want to start tonight? I always go through this where there'll be several options, and maybe I'll start one and I'll put it down. That's what I did last night. And then I'll finally get one, and I say, okay, I'm going with this one. The other one is by an author that I've always wanted to read. Haven't read him yet. James A. Michener. Mexico is the name of this one. Mexico. I'm learning Spanish. I actually had to settle for a large print edition of this novel at a book sale recently, but I got it for about 10 cents, so it was well worth it. I want to read this because this isn't just a novel that takes place in Mexico. It's a history. This is a historical fiction novel. That's what James Michener writes. He writes these huge sagas that take place over millions and billions of years. And I want to know about this. I know that there's bullfighting in it and everything. I want to know more about Mexico because I don't know shit about it. I don't know anything about Mexico other than maybe just the vaguest pop culture references. I want to know more about it, and I think that it will make my study of the Spanish language a lot more interesting, and it'll kind of propel me into want to spending even more time. I assume that it's going to take me several years to become conversant in Spanish to where I'm actually making sense. I'm only studying anywhere from like 10 minutes to 30 minutes a day. I'm actually on a 60-day streak on Duolingo. So I think that this is just going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be an interesting read, and it'll be an author that I've wanted to read for a long time that I finally gotten around to reading. I also want to read his Texas. I want to read his Centennial. They're all massive novels. Most of them are over 1,000 pages. But I'm finally going to do it. Unless I read The Tale of the Body Thief, which I think I'm actually leaning toward. By the way, Pet Sematary was my 53rd Stephen King book completed. I'm getting there now. I was thinking the other day, why haven't I finished all the Stephen King books yet? I think maybe subconsciously I've avoided reading them at a faster pace because what do I do once I've read all the Stephen King books? That would be kind of a hard place to be because then I've read them all. I don't want to have read them all, but I do actually want to read them all. Gerald's Game may be the next one for me. A viewer, Juan Martinez, said that although this book has a low rating, generally speaking, this is one of the least liked novels by constant readers. He likes it a lot. So I'm going to go with this one. I like the history of this book in the Stephen King multiverse. It was originally intended to be one book, one piece. It was originally intended to be a companion novel along with Dolores Claiborne. They were supposed to be two novels intimately intertwined with one another, where events from one novel had an influence on events in the other novel and back and forth. Both taking place during the solar eclipse. You'll find a map in both novels, Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game. They both take place during the same solar eclipse in Maine. However, Stephen King largely abandoned that project. They're not as intimately intertwined as they once were. They were supposed to be two novels in one book called The Path of the Eclipse, Dolores Claiborne and Gerald's Game. But I need to get Gerald's Game under my belt. I read the two big ones. I read The Stand earlier this year. I read It last year. I still have to do Cell, Sleeping Beauties, 5 of the Bachman books, each one in the Bachman books collection, Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, The Running Man. I need to read Thinner as well. Still haven't got around to those. I also have to read Cujo, which is a book I gave up on. Sleeping Beauties, I gave up on it. Cell, I gave up on it. Boy, I hated that one. But I'm going back to it. And a few other ones I've got to read later. I've got to read Billy Summers. So I've got a lot to do with Stephen King yet. I'm kind of looking forward to Billy Summers, the new one by King. A lot of people say the older King gets, the less he has it with the novel writing. His novels are becoming shorter, less in depth. But Billy Summers is like a full length, pretty big hardback, and people are just saying they love it. And it has a high rating on Goodreads. Of course, people love Stephen King so much, literally speaking, that maybe they rate his novels high when they first come out because they're just so damn excited that a new Stephen King book's come out. But I have a feeling I'm going to like Billy Summers. 2 more books to show you about, actually 3, and this one I'll show you in about 10 seconds. I'm reading a book called English Grammar. That's enough of that. You know, language, as I'm studying Spanish, I realized that I don't know much about language. It's been many years since I was in school studying, you know, nouns and verbs and adjectives and adverbs and conjunctions and all this stuff. And I need to know some of that stuff better so that I can understand how languages work, because there's common themes through any language, so that I can have a better understanding of how Spanish works, because it's challenging taking on a language to begin with. But if I understand the rules of language better, I'll have a better time with Spanish. I know that I will. So I'm learning English grammar so that I can take some of those rules. And by the way, I'm not even reading the whole book. I'm reading the first section in this book that amounts to, I think it's like 93 pages. It's not 93 pages it's 95 pages called Grammar 101. Parts of speech, basic phrases, sentences and clauses, verb forms, verbals. That's enough about that. But I'm working on learning more about language because I'd like to become a language connoisseur. Maybe I'll learn French after I learn Spanish. But I have a question for you all. Let me get to a couple of these comments. Did you finish the first Law series? What did you think of that? You know, I actually fell into a reading slump. And I've mentioned it the last few videos that I've done. I finished The Stand by Stephen King, and I just was turned off on reading for a while. I actually had to push through the last bit of The Stand because I just didn't feel like reading at that time. And I had pre-planned to go right into The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. I actually bought the set. Look at this beautiful set of paperbacks that I bought. Isn't that a nice set? That's the less, there's a set. Well, actually, there's a set that looks like this. This is the common paperback set. It's the more expensive paperback set. But I actually like the one I got. By the way, you can probably hear this chair squeaking. I ordered a chair on eBay like about 20-something days ago. It's still not here yet. Hopefully, God, that thing gets here soon. But yeah, I have these. But what I was getting at was that I was in a reading slump. So I started the first novel. I didn't get far because I just had to stop reading for a while. But I am going to go back to that. So yeah, the first Law series didn't get far only because I just wasn't into reading. It wasn't because I wasn't into the story. Actually, it opened up in an interesting manner, I thought. Logan Ninefingers. And some of the other characters I was introduced to before I put it down. But I will cover it here on the channel soon. When will you upload your Gunslinger reading guide video? What you're probably referring to is my guided tour of the Drawing of the Three, which has been a true nightmare of a video, and I'm still working on it. And I'm going to be fast about this because I mentioned it before, but allow me to vent for about 1 minute. I have a guided tour for the Dark Tower series. Watch my The Gunslinger if you've read it. It's a great summary of everything that happens in The Gunslinger. I'm the only one in the history of the world to do a summary on the Dark Tower books where we go from scene to scene. Now, there are some summaries out there that are kind of just broad summaries of what one of the particular books is about. But no one has ever done an in-depth summary where we're talking about everything that's important in each novel. So I did my Gunslinger one. It was like 24 minutes long. Great video. It's the best video I ever did. And it gets watches every day. So I'm on the drawing of the 3 now, which was a very hard task because in order to do one of these summary videos, I've got to read the book, and every page I've got to summarize what I read in a couple of sentences through the whole book. Then I've got to revise it and turn it into a script and revise it and clean it up again. Well, I did it. I was getting close to finishing the video, and I realized that when I was reading the script, I didn't read it at the right pace. I read it too slow. Oh, God. And I already had around 200 hours of work into that video by the time I realized I read the script in at the wrong pace. So I'm now going to be rereading the script in. So it's going to be probably about another week to 10 days before my drawing of the 3 guided tour is out, because that series of videos is so important to me. It's basically my magnum opus on this YouTube channel, is my guided tour of the Dark Tower series. So it's unacceptable the way that it is. It's got to be re-narrated. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm one step away from insanity with that, but I will get it done. I have not read The Jaunt. Just bought the same set in August. Not typically a fantasy fan, but I fell in love with it and couldn't put it down. Finished the series in just a few weeks. Yeah, Joe Abercrombie, he has more novels in that series. I'm also really enjoying Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. But let me ask you guys, I was on my way of asking you. And by the way, for those of you that didn't tune in right away, give me some feedback in the comments. I'm thinking about slightly changing direction with the channel. Rather than me just reviewing a book like I would normally do, I'm thinking about having more conversations. Bev Vincent and I did a great video where we did the Dark Tower Explained video. It's got over 5,000 views already. Every day it gets 100 views or more. And I'm thinking about my review for Pet Sematary because I finished that novel. I've got to review it. Here it is, the paperback. Also have a hardback of it. Do I sit here by myself like I would normally do and talk about what I thought of it? Or maybe I could have Bev back on and we could do a conversation about the book. And the other question, guys, let me ask if you would be interested in that or not, but also let me know. There are tens of thousands probably of people that talk about books on YouTube. And as you know, I'm not one of the ones that blew up. Okay, so my channel's still fairly small. I'm doing a lot better than some, but I'm still fairly small. I'm thinking about what could I just do differently that might do something for me. And I know that there are nobody does it. I don't think anyone in the world does it on any platform. There are no live shows, no live programs that are literary based about reading novels for the most part that are like regularly broadcast on a certain day and time. Like, I don't know, like 6 days a week, we're on at 7 p.m. for an hour, and we talk about something to do with novels. I don't know what it is yet, but I just don't know if my viewers would be interested in something like that. I would really like to do that because it would be so much easier for me than doing those pre-recorded things, because those can be frustrating for me. I really like doing live shows. I like these live videos, even like I'm doing now, but I'm just thinking about like a literary live show program. Would there be potential for that, or would it be a waste of time? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Anyway, I want to ask you guys, has anyone heard of this author? Donna Leon, Transient Desires is the name of this one. It gets a pretty good rating on Goodreads. The reason I have this is that I'm part of a reading club at my local library, the Stark County Public Library, main branch. And I'm in a mystery club book group there. And a lot of times I don't read the book. I usually show up to the groups just to chat about books, even if I don't read the monthly selection or whatever. But been a while since I read a monthly selection. And because I'm part of the group, I like to read one at least every once in a while. And this isn't a real long book. This is a best-selling author. It says New York Times best-selling author right on the front. But I'm just curious, has anyone ever heard of Donna Leon? This is a mystery series that takes place in France, I believe, and Paris, maybe. Hell, I don't know what this thing is, but yeah, it's French. So I'm thinking about reading it. I know the audiobook is free on Hoopla, so I don't have to actually purchase the audiobook. I'm someone who reads the text and listens to the audiobook simultaneously. So every time I pick up a book, I have to have the audiobook version of it as well. Occasionally, I'll listen to an audiobook only or read a book only, but I like to do both simultaneously. I'm actually going to be doing a video on that here soon. In fact, I already recorded it. I just haven't finished it yet. I bet it's going to be good. The Drawing of the Three is my favorite Dark Tower book. It's my favorite Dark Tower book as well. And I've really taken time for this Drawing of the Three. And that's why it's not published yet, because I refused to put out what I had. You know, audiobook narration is something that I've thought about getting into, because if you're lucky with that, you can do well. Imagine how much money you would make as an audiobook narrator if you managed to do like the new Stephen King, or maybe even some author that's not quite as popular as that. You know, audiobook narrators and the author of the book split the money 50-50. And of course, Audible takes their cut, or whoever else is involved. But I'm saying, as far as the profit for the author goes on an audiobook sale, that's split with the narrator. That's why a lot of audiobook or a lot of popular authors will just narrate their own audiobook. That way they don't have to share the money 50-50 with anyone else. Stephen King narrates some of his own books. But yeah, the Drawing of the Three guided tour, it's become so frustrating to me because it's such a time-consuming thing. I can only imagine how time-consuming Wizard and Glass is going to be. I don't even know if I have it in me to summarize that book, because it's not just a general summary that I'm doing. I'm literally telling the story that's in the book with my summary. I expect that the Drawing of the Three guided tour video is going to be probably about 50 minutes. 50 minutes, which is a long time for a summary, but there's a lot in there. And there's a lot that I can't cut out. I've cut out as much of it as I can without jeopardizing the story itself. So it will be like a live podcast. Yes, that, and of course I would still do a video from some videos where it's just me talking about something, but it would be a literary podcast. And there aren't any. I mean, there might be a few that aren't successful at all. I know there are a few like public libraries that have a YouTube channel, but they don't do like a regularly scheduled program. That would be amazing. Honestly, if I did that and I started getting a lot of activity with that, I would go for that. I would go for that big time. Last thing I have for you guys here, reading a nonfiction book. I have another channel. You can check it out if you want. It's about philosophical type subjects. And I haven't done a lot of videos for it yet, but I will be getting more interviews for that soon. I picked up The Physics of Immortality by the mathematical physicist Frank J. Tipler. This is a book by a physicist who's actually a respected physicist. He's even written textbooks. Some people think he's a bit of a wacko, but he believes that what's going to happen, I don't even know what this guy believes. I've got to read the book, but he believes that somehow everyone who ever lived is going to be resurrected through some type of computer program, which on the surface might sound a little wacky. But the guy is an extremely sharp guy, and I want to read the book. I sent an email to him today, so hopefully he gets back to me. I'd like to talk to him about this book on my other program. And let me actually show you guys. I'll give you the address to my other channel. If you want to subscribe to that one, I'd appreciate it. There's going to be activity coming very soon on that one. Shoot. I'm going to put it in the, I'm going to put the web address in the chat box real quick. If you could take a minute to go on over there and subscribe, I would appreciate it. I just dropped the address in the chat box. But yeah, that's it, guys. I finished Pet Sematary. Tonight, I will probably start The Tale of the Body Thief, or I might go on with Mexico by James Michener. I'm going to be reading Gerald's Game. I'm also going to be probably reading this thing. You know, I'm someone that's not big on new authors. unless there were a particular reason that I wanted to read it on my own for whatever, maybe my investigations lead me to a book, then I'm fine with reading a new author. But if someone says, here's a book, read it, I'm not usually into that because I've got other shit I'd rather read that's important to me, and I don't want to take time out to read some thing that somebody wants me to, but I don't know. I might read it. Transient Desires by Donna Leon. So let me know, guys, what you think. Would you like to see a live podcast type show where I have guests on regularly to talk about books? I guess that's what I'm curious about. So let me know. You can also let me know what you guys are reading down in the comments below. I usually respond to those. And with that, I'm going to make dinner and start another.